Today we are going to see the banker's algorithm, which is deadlock avoidance approach. We'll first see what is the deadlock avoidance. Deadlock can be prevented by using deadlock prevention approach, deadlock avoidance approach, and deadlock detection approach. So deadlock prevention means to prevent any one or all the 3-4 conditions of which are necessary and sufficient conditions for deadlock to occur. So we are focusing on the on avoiding all that. Today we'll focus on deadlock avoidance approach. In last video we have seen deadlock prevention, deadlock avoidance, and deadlock detection approaches. So here we'll focus on deadlock avoidance. Deadlock avoidance approaches, there are two approaches for the deadlock to avoid. First is not to initiate the processes leading to deadlock. So operating system will just not select the processes, the execution of which process will lead to deadlock. So such a processes will not be initiated for their execution. And the second approach is not to allocate the incremental resource request or not to grant incremental resource request to the processes if it is going to lead to deadlock. So in these two ways operating system will be working. Depending on these two approaches, the banker's algorithm is there. In the banker's algorithm, it is able to determine the safe state of the system, whether the system is in safe state or not. Safe state of the system means the system is not going into the deadlock condition or situation. That is safe state of the system, and obviously unsafe state of the system will be the system is leading to deadlock or no not responding state. So with the help of banker's algorithm we are able to detect the state of the system, whether it will lead to deadlock or it will not lead to deadlock. So we concentrate on the algorithm now. According to banker's algorithm, the 5 types of different matrices are taken track of. So here first matrix is claim matrix. Claim matrix is nothing but what are the claims made by the processes in order to execute completely. Means these are the maximum requirement of the resources which are needed to complete the execution of any process. So here according to this matrix, here P1, P2, P3 and P4, these are the processes, and R1, R2, R3, these are the resources which are available in the system. Now suppose here if you consider the case of P1, here 3 resources of type R1 are needed by the process P1, 2 types of R2 resources are needed by the process, and 2 types of R3 resources are needed by the process for its complete execution. Similarly, P2 needs 6, 1 and 3 R1, R2, R3 types of resources to complete its execution. The P3, 3, 1, 4 and P4 needs 4, 2, 2. Now here resource vector is given. Resource vector gives us the scenario that what is the total number of resources, what are the total number of resources present in the system at any given instance. So here the total number of resources present in the system are 9 instances of the resource R1 are there, 3 instances of resource R2 and 6 instances of resource type R3 is present in the system. Here it is available vector B. Available vector is nothing but once the process is initiated for its execution, some resources are allocated to the process to continue with its execution. So after allocation of some resources to the processes, how many are the available resources? What are the number of resources which are still free in the system? So that quantity is given by this available vector V. Now allocation matrix is there. Allocation matrix means in order to initiate any process, some resources are granted by the operating system to the process, and that is nothing but allocation matrix of the process for the process. So here P1 process has allocated with one R1 type of resource and no R2 R3 type of resource is granted to P1. P2 is granted with 6 R1, 1 R2 and 2 R3 type of resources. Similarly P3 211 and P4 002. These are the allocations which are made by operating system to the processes P1, P2, P3 and P4. Now, from this claim matrix C and allocation matrix C, we are able to calculate the need matrix. Need matrix means when the process execution is initiated. After that, while going through the execution, what more resources are needed by the process. So that calculation is nothing but need matrix. So need matrix is obviously total required resources of the process minus total allocated resources to the process. So here C minus A, this count is going to give you the need matrix. Means this P1, what you can say as a summary, that P1 process needs 2 R1 type, 2 R2 type and 2 R3 type of more resources to complete its execution. It has initiated with one R1 type of resource, but still it needs 2 R1, R2, R3 types of resources to complete its execution. Like this. So this need matrix gives you the demands, the requirements of the processes to complete their execution. Now, here the question is what? Find the state of system and find safe sequence to follow. Here we are going to find out the safe state of the system. Now, here we will concentrate first on the available resources. So, available resource vector is showing you what? It is showing that 0, 1, 1. These are the available instances at the given time, at the current time in the system. Now, we look at this need matrix. If we consider that we are going to complete the execution of P1 process, then what is its need? Its need is 2 R1, R2, R3 types of resources. But what is available with us? Only one resource of type R2 and one resource of type R3. So only this much is available with us. So what we will do? We cannot continue with the execution of P1 because its need cannot be satisfied. So we switch to P2 process. P2 process needs only one instance of R3 type which is available with us. So operating system concludes that we can continue with the execution of P2 process. So it starts with execution of P2 process. Now since one resource is allocated to P2 process for its completion of execution, so here now our V vector will be 0, 1, 0, isn't it? So available will be what? Only one type of R2 resource will be available with us. Once this P2 completes its execution, so what is the total demand of this P2 process? 613. So this is the total demand of P2 process. Once this P2 process completes its execution, it will release 6 R1 type of resources, 1 R2 type of resource and 3 R3 type of resources. So this will be released by this P2 process. So once the resources are released, they will be added into the available vector count. So here in this available vector, it will be getting added once the execution of P2 is completed. So I'll make addition of these two. This is the updated vector and I'm going to add 613 of this P2 to it so that updated available vector will be 6, 2 and 3. So this is now available with me for the next execution with operating system to carry out next execution. Now 6, 2, 3. If this vector is compared with again the processes which need to execute. Now here P2 process has already completed its execution, so I'll just mark it with some green color so that its execution is completed. So now I switch to P1 process. Whether with the available vectors, available V vector, I am able to complete the execution of P1 process or not. Now the demand of P1 process is 222 and available with me is 623. So obviously I can continue with the execution of P1 process. So I just continue with the execution of P1 process. So what is the demand of P1 process? 222. So here from this current available vector, I'll subtract 222. So here 6 minus 2 is 4, 2 minus 2 0, 3 minus 2 is 1. So this is now the available vector which is present with me. Now once I complete the execution of P1 process, how many resources it is going to release? 322. So this must be added into my available vector. So just I add the 322 to the currently available vector 401. So it becomes 723. So this is updated vector after completion of P1. Now again I will compare this 723. Since this P1 is executed completely, I just mark with green color. Now only two processes are remaining. The P3 process demand is what? 103. Available with me is what? 723. Obviously I can continue with the execution of P3 process. Same thing is repeated. Now P3 demand is what? 103. So it will be cut out from the currently available. So remaining is this. After completion of execution, P3 will release the resources which are allocated to it. That is 314. It will be added into current vector, available vector, to get me this one. And after the completion of P3 process, only one process is remaining there. With this, the requirement is 420. Just I can satisfy that requirement. So I just continue with the P4 execution. So once I allocate the need matrix of this P4, I have in my available vector 514. After completion of P4, P4 will release all the resources allocated to it. There is 422, and hence my available vector now becomes 936. Once this P4 is completed with its execution, now no other process is remaining in the system, and hence my resource vector should match with the available vector. So total number of resources will be 3 now for making allocation. So here it is 936. I'll just check. I'll just match it with this one. So it is also 936, which is V is equal to R here. So here I can say that the safe sequence of execution is what? I have started with P2, then executed P1, then P3, and then P4. So this is nothing but the safe sequence of execution. If I go with this way, I will not reach the deadlock. And hence the system, if you follow this safe sequence, the system is in safe state. So this is all about the Banker's algorithm, how to find out whether the system is in safe state or not, and how to find out safe sequence of the execution. In the next video, we'll see one example which is leading to unsafe state of the system. Thank you.